Let's talk about how I laid out this 20 by 30 garden.
Recently we went over this 20 by 30 garden with the north being on the long side, the 30-foot side. Now we're going to go over that same 30 by 20-foot garden, but this time we're going to put the north on the short side and make a whole new layout.
First, we want to go ahead and find the center of the garden, which is right here. I've marked it to save us some time. And we're going to mark 2 feet off one side and 2 feet off the other side. Now we're going to make a walkway that goes straight through the garden. Now we have a pathway directly through the garden, and it's 4 foot wide so that we can easily get our materials like compost and other things into the garden once our garden is going and growing, because things tend to spill outside of the beds. Now on the north side of our garden, we're going to want to plant things that are taller like corn, okra, sunflowers, and we're going to make 2 beds over here that are 4 feet off of the line here. Now, if you have to have a fence up, you're going to want to make this 3 feet so that you can reach in, because you're not going to be able to get onto the other side. But we're going to assume here that you're able to get all the way around. Now these beds are 4 by 8. Now to maintain these beds, we're going to need to be able to walk on this side of the bed. And I always suggest that you keep your paths no less than 3 foot wide so that it's easy to get down and get wheelbarrows down them as well. Now with this layout, I'm going to suggest that we put another 4 by 8 garden bed here on this side and on this side. Now in these beds, this is where we're going to include a cattle panel. Now cattle panels are 4 foot by 16 foot. So it'll be perfect for the end of the beds here. And the reason why I'm suggesting that we put it on this one with the longer ones is because we can start our squash back further off of the cattle panel, giving it time to add additional roots at leaf nodes so that it'll be less likely to die should it get hit by the vine borer. So there's one of the cattle panels. As always, we need to add a 3 foot walkway here so that we can maintain our garden bed. For our next cattle panel, we're going to add a 4 by 2 bed. Now for this one here, because it's only 2 feet, I would suggest you use this cattle panel for things like beans and cucumbers, things that don't have really big leaves. And then you can also put in marigolds and other low growing companion plants with it. The other great thing about having these cattle panels here is we're going to have our tall crops here, and then we'll have vining squash or something over here, and then some more vining plants. So this is still technically more on the north side of the garden bed. We're having our taller objects. That'll leave the lower ones, such as peppers and things that need a lot of sun, to be planted on the south side of the garden. Now, if for example you live in a really warm climate and you need to utilize some of this shade, you can utilize these cattle panels and plant things strategically so that they're getting some additional shade in the afternoon when it's the hottest. Now over here, we're going to place a 4 by 3 bed. Marking off our walkways. Again, we're going to get one more walkway that goes straight through. That's 3 foot wide. And again, to match up this pathway so we can go straight through, we're going to do another 2 by 4 here. Now this area on either side, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to have a 2 foot area here. And if you hear that noise, that's my hydroponic center going. And then we're gonna come up to 3 foot. We're gonna have like an L-shaped bed here. The same thing on this side. So we can essentially break this into 2 areas to calculate the square footage. We have a 3 by 9, and then we have a 2 by 5. And we'll add our walkways. I see this as a really pretty garden here, especially this area, with these being maybe raised up a little bit higher with some herbs and flowers that would flow over the side. Corn or okra or sunflowers back here, with squash vining over here. Just remember, if you plant sunflowers, they do tend to attract the cucumber beetles because they are attracted to the yellow, and sunflowers can't be planted with every crop because it'll inhibit the growth. So just make sure you research that information. But imagine walking in here or here and having corn on either side of you, and then squash going over here with nasturtiums around the edge, and then cucumbers and beans growing on this one here, maybe some tomato plants and either one of these over here. Like I said, a taller bed here with flowing herbs and flowers, some pepper plants on the very southwest side of the garden bed because that's where it'll be the warmest. From my calculations, this garden gives you 258 square feet of growing. That doesn't include the cattle panel space, the vertical space that we're taking advantage of here, and any other vertical spaces that you may put in. Now, much like the other garden, this will get us fresh produce for 1 to 4 people. You'll be able to put away some produce, but you're not going to be able to put away enough for an entire year's worth of produce. The time that you'll need to maintain this garden during the week once it's all set up is you'll need about 1 to 4 hours, but that's really going to depend on what your watering situation is. Do you have irrigation put in? Also, what are your walkways set up as? I recommend using cardboard and wood chips to suppress the weeds and not having grass in here that you're going to have to mow. Having grass adds complications because your plants are going to likely spill outside of your garden bed, and that's going to mean that you're not going to be able to mow right up to your garden bed without hurting your plants. Also, it's going to promote weed growth within your garden itself in the beds. Now for this garden, this would be good, just like the other one, for somebody who's an intermediate gardener, somebody that doesn't have a full-time dedication to their garden, but doesn't have to be completely advanced to have this garden. Okay, so I shut off my light and I have my flashlight so I can give you a demonstration on the sun here. Now these cattle panels are going to let light through until they're full of vines. When your sun is rising and lower on the horizon, the shadows that it's going to cast are going to be longer. And then as the sun goes throughout the day, the shadows will get shorter. And then again, when it goes to set, it's going to have longer shadows. So you need to think about where your shadows are going to be in the morning, where they're going to be at sunset. Does your garden not have a true east to west over? Is it kind of slanted? Mine kind of comes up in an angle this way, so the shadows go a little bit differently. Now also you want to think about any trees that you have around your garden, any houses or buildings you have around your garden. You also want to make sure that you have a water source that's near your garden, and it would be helpful if you had a shed or a place that you could put the tools that you're going to need to use while you're in the garden. I hope you found that helpful, and if you did, let me know in the comments, and please like and follow for more content like this and much more.